Welcome to a brand new Vane Monthly, where I wrap up the weekly posts we've had from the dev team over the past month, talk about what they've been working on, and some of the upcoming changes to our favourite zombie survival game. Coming up in this monthly, we'll be talking about an important update and delay to controller and Steam Deck support, upcoming map expansion, thermostats, animations, foliage, and nature-based tools. Let's get into it. Now this month we've had no hotfixes as the devs have been focusing on getting 0.023 ready for release, which will see a number of improvements coming for the game, including zombie AI improvements, the introduction of underwater caves and shipwrecks, and an overhaul to hunting and fishing. We covered these key changes in the last Vane Monthly. Click on the top right if you'd like to watch January's edition, where these were covered in detail. The first weekly post from the devs came on the 4th of February. This one was focused on quality assurance, with one of the leading pieces of news being an addition to the team in No Name, who's helping out with quality assurance and ensuring that bugs are being identified so that they can be squashed. Interestingly, some of the UI work that Disseminate was focused on broke some aspects of the experimental branch early on, such as lockpicking, but this has since been fixed. Another really cool update has seen that the Vane soundtrack has been updated by the wonderful Rimancer. Links in the description for the new additions to the soundtrack, and the devs are working on updating the Steam soundtrack accordingly. Make sure you go and subscribe to Rimancer on YouTube too. I often find myself listening to the soundtrack when I'm not even playing the game. The devs added freezer controls so that walk-in freezers can be turned on and off. They've also added the ability to wire radiators to gas tanks and have fixed air conditioners on the roofs of some buildings not working. Additionally, whilst we're talking about the fixes to aircon, they've started to separate out central air and heating systems in buildings. So some buildings will have central air or central heating, but not both. There's also a raft of other fixes coming in 0.023, including a fix to players getting cut by some overzealous barbed wire on top of fence gates, issues with picking things up on rugs, incorrect crafting tooltips, warehouse ladders blocking the camera, vehicles freezing when hitting icy water, fixes to fluid sources such as washing machines and sinks, where, if you moved them, you'd be able to drink from them. All of these fixes and many more will be in the changelog once 0.023 releases. The devs also teased the idea of mastery systems, which they're in the early design stages of. This will function as a form of prestige, so that once players have hit level 100 for any given skill, you'll be able to continue gaining experience, which will then funnel into mastery points. They can then be spent on simple buffs like an increase to HP or faster melee attacks, for example. The idea here is to reward endgame players for continued XP gain. This isn't something that will be in for 0.023, but gives a flavour of what the devs are thinking longer term. The devs also announced a new design for base protection and utility cabinets, with the new system moving away from fortifications being owned by a utility cabinet, where they'll be owned by the player building them instead. This will free up utility cabinets to be used solely for base maintenance and not ownership, which could stop some exploits and could also free the way for roaming bases, for example on boats, trains or RVs in future. One key update from the devs is that full controller support and full Steam Deck support has been delayed. Initially, the dev team were hoping to release this in 0.023, but unfortunately there's been complications in this work and it's delaying the rest of the 0.023 release, so this will no longer form part of it. The devs are pushing this back to 0.024 onwards, so unfortunately for those who have been waiting for full Steam Deck or controller support, will have to wait longer than initially hoped for full support. However, there has been some changes as part of the UI, sort of improvements, which will make this better, as you can see on screen now. This will be disappointing for many, I'm sure, but the devs have decided to focus on polish and bug fixes for 0.023, as it's their first major update post-early access. There is not anticipated to be any further hotfixes for 0.022, as they'll be rolled into the 0.023 release. The devs confirmed that the update for 0.023 will work with existing saves, so you will not need to start a new save game when the new update releases, which I'm sure will be a welcome announcement for those of us who are deep into a save game at present. The devs confirmed that work is continuing on the fishing mechanic, with the addition of parts and maintenance to fishing rods, and also changes to how the fishing minigame works, with the hope that some of this work can then be integrated into the new hunting systems and adjust how they operate too. Meat bait is also going to be added to the game, which will be used when trapping animals. Some of the continued UI work by Disseminate, and with controller support in mind, has some consequences for menus, so we'll see a reduction in stuttering or delays in opening menus, as menus will now be cached. This means that when you open a menu, for example, maybe the construction menu, it will open to the last tab and the item you had open on it. A really minor sounding change, but a very welcome one in my book, which should make building and crafting less frustrating with flicking back and forth to get back to what you were just building or looking at. In terms of animations, I mentioned in the last monthly that Annie was working on animations for the 0.38. These will be added to the game with 0.023. These look incredible, but are work in progress. Additionally, some work's been done by Disseminate on procedurally aimed down sight animation, with the hope that weapon attachments should be upgraded to work as intended. So here's hoping we'll be able to use the red dot sight properly soon, and that it'll all line up. The devs also announced that they've added a bone hammer to the game. This is one of the starting steps on the way to being able to do a full nomad or off-grid playthrough, and will be the start of many more nature-based tools being added to the game. Those of you who enjoy driving around in the utility buggy will be able to see that the gas tank will actually be where the gas tank is on the vehicle, making refilling it a little bit more straightforward. And there's also some fixes coming to floating shirts, weapons and more appearing when playing in third person. This was due to the game creating these items for first-person legs, which messed up the third-person view. There's anticipated to be a fix to the long-standing vehicle bug, where if you logged out with items attached to a vehicle and then loaded back in, the vehicle would, well, let's be fair here, do a bit of a dance, or fly off, or just totally bug out. The devs struggle to replicate this issue, but are hopeful that the fix should work when 0.023 is released. One thing I'm really excited by, which is incredibly minor in the grand scheme of things, is some work that Disseminate has been doing, writing an inspection menu. It will enable us to click inspect on items in the inventory, which means we'll be able to admire some of the art in game a little bit more easily. This is a really minor thing, but I personally love being able to appreciate the minor details in games, so this is really cool. AMD FSR is also being added to the game. It is optional and will be toggled off by default, as it could lower the graphical quality on the game, but it's there if you'd like to enable it. And the devs will probably add NVIDIA's DLSS if there is enough interest. One thing to look forward to after 0.023 is that there's more map expansion planned. These will be relatively minor in comparison to the map expansion we saw between the demo and early access, so the devs are keen to manage expectations here, but we will see some minor expansion into some more forested areas with a few points of interest inside it. If you're someone who enjoys being more off-grid and away from the built-up areas, this could be a spot for you. It's likely to be to the west of Redford. Some additional work that's been going on has been around photos in-game, where the devs have added the ability to spawn specific photos. With over 480 photos at the time of recording, each now has a unique number ID. Additionally, there's been some background work by Disseminate on indexing placeholder art so that these can start to be replaced. We'll see some placeholders replaced by new art in 0.023. For example, some of the skill books have received some love, courtesy of Mood, which is really cool to see and adds some more immersion to the game. In terms of wider art though, as you can imagine, this will be an ongoing piece of work for some time. In the latest weekly from the devs, Disseminate confirmed something that I'm sure caught a few by surprise. Hunger and thirst have been bugged for a while and had no negative effects at all. So all this time we've been desperately searching for food and drink. We'd have been fine if we hadn't eaten or drank anything. Very, very naughty. This has now been fixed though, so from 0.023 there'll be health damage if you let your character veer onto the extreme side of hunger or thirst. I'm just casting my mind back to all of those Let's Play episodes where I was desperate for food or drink and thinking, what a silly waste of my time that could have been. Whilst on the topic of health, there's also been an addition to the medical tab in your player menu. You'll now be able to see if you're losing or recovering health. which is a nice addition to the medical screen in my view. A few important updates in terms of performance will be heading our way with 0.0232. There's been loads of work done on foliage, and you can see the side-by-side comparison on screen now. And notably, Disseminate has been doing some work on shadows, which are being optimized. This work is very much work in progress, though, and will continue, so don't expect significant improvements here yet. In addition, the devs have been fixing skylighting issues and skylight performance, as well as landscapes being optimized too, which were all rendering in a lower resolution than intended. And Disseminate has adjusted the landscape loading behavior too, which should significantly improve performance, as they've reduced the number of polygons your graphics card needs to load in by half when your player character is outdoors. Additionally, and one thing I'm sure you'll notice in 0.023, is that the watermark in the top right-hand corner will be removed. This will be present still in experimental. It'll just be much smaller and at the bottom left of the screen. But for those on the normal game mode, there will be no watermark, which I'm sure will help with immersion. In summary, there's been a lot of work done by the devs this month, and I think that it's important to call out. Sometimes we see the work the dev team are doing through hotfixes, bug fixes, and updates, but even in a month where we've not had a hotfix, I'm sure 0.023 will show off how much work they've been doing, and I think it's awesome that they still continue to post weekly updates for us to digest. If you found this monthly helpful, please do like the video and subscribe. I release Vane content every Wednesday in addition to my Let's Play episodes on Mondays, and it would be great to see you over on one of those videos too. Perhaps you'd like to check out the Extraction Challenge video, where I'm trying to escape the apocalypse. You can watch the linked video at the end. In the meantime, stay safe, enjoy, good luck surviving, and I'll catch you next time.